The result of the study suggests that offering moxibustion for breech presentation 33 weeks reduced the number of breech presented at term, consequently a reduction of the number of cesarean sections. So it's definitely, even if you see that, you can see the difference. There is less breech at delivery, at term, then obviously consequently there will be less cesarean section.
And good evening to everybody there, the other side of the camera. Welcome to this week's Maternity and Midwifery Hour. This is session 11, June the 23rd, 2021, and it's a series 4. And it's really lovely that you've made the time to be with us. I'm delighted to be joined, and I should say my name's Sue MacDonald, and I'm the curator and the chair for the Maternity and Midwifery Hour and the Maternity and Midwifery Festivals. And tonight I'm joined by 2 wonderful colleagues because we're going to be talking about pelvic floor health. It's a very important area for all of us. And I'm joined by Abigail Holmes, or Abby Holmes, and Teresa Gernon. And it's my pleasure to welcome them here this evening and do what I always do to our speakers, is put them on the spot to say, could you share a lovely special moment of the week with us? Shall I start with Teresa for your special moment of the week, Teresa?
Okay, well, it was a personal moment for me. So I have a little dog, he's 11 and a half, and I adore him. And he's been quite poorly over the last 6 weeks. Yeah, he's had a problem with his ligament on his back leg. But on Monday, we got the all clear, and I was able to actually take him for a proper walk on Monday, as in a proper 2-miler. And
wow.
He has been quite depressed, I think, actually, because I haven't been able to take him out, and he doesn't really understand why. And he would, be obviously every day, Mum, we're going for a walk. And it's like, no, just literally back garden. So yeah, Monday was a really nice day to take him out, let him off the lead, sniff away as much as he wanted to. And yeah, that was my moment of the week.
Fabulous.
Oh, and obviously winning the football last night.
Oh, okay. I won't say anything about football. This is not my area. And I understand there's something going on practically every night that does with the football. I have no link up with it at all.
It's a full tournament.
So forgive me, audience. Thank you for that. That's lovely. And probably a very good for you and your little dog going out for those walks.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Fabulous. Thank you for that. How about Abby, your moment of the week?
So mine is it's a link between professional and personal. I clicked the submission button on an application to become a pelvic health practitioner.
Wow.
So it's a lot more study coming my way, but hopefully it will be of great service to the women that once I've qualified in all the new skills I'm hoping to learn. So it was a bit of a do I, don't I? Do I really want to go back to university? Yes, by doing it in a staged approach. So I'm not sure how long it's going to take me, but yes, it's just one more step to kind of further my knowledge within this area.
Yeah, I understand studying can be a bit addictive, Abby. And I think students out there will think never again. But believe me, you will get addicted. And Abby is a case in point. So thank you so much for that. And well done. That's fantastic. Fantastic for your women and, their families and everything, but also for you. Superb. Okay, we're going to just remind ourselves why we're here, not just to hear about pelvic health, which is very important, but remember that these whole sessions were designed in response to the COVID-19 to make sure that midwives, student midwives, doulas, women, anyone who was interested in maternity services had access to information and kind of a link to each other. And that's why we tried to have these weekly 1-hour sessions to provide that link. Just to say, they are accessible tonight. And they'll be accessible after Friday. This session will be accessible, so tell all your friends. But also, of course, you've got access to all the back issues of all the maternity hours and actually the festivals that we've done. And you just need to go to Matflix, who look after all the materials, to find what you want. Now, this is important for any of you midwives looking at revalidation, or if you happen to be doing a little old course like Abby will be doing, or if you're a student doing a course and you need some up-to-date information and you need to see who's been saying what, this is where you need to go. So thank you to Matflix, video streaming from maternity experts. Of course, you can also go to All for Maternity, which is run by Sheena and Anna Byram, which is also a fantastic resource for any of us that are trying to keep up to date, because it is difficult when you've got the pressure of work at a time of pandemic and you're balancing a busy life as well, to keep yourself really up to date and interested too. Need to keep them all interested. So just a little bit of news. We're still going with the vaccinations, which seems to be going very well. I understand from the sort of update today that it's 2/3 of adults in the UK, or in England, maybe it might be just England, have had 2 jabs, which is excellent. And of course, the rates of infection are going up a little bit, but it seems as though death rates have come right down, and we must hope that stays the same. So big thank you to everyone within the NHS, keeping everything going, looking after us all and looking after people who are unwell. So big hugs and thanks to them. And also to the maternity service, because we just carry on providing care, because women are still getting pregnant and babies are still arriving and still needing quality care. So thank you, everyone, and all the key workers. I always say this, but we do mean it. Other things in the news, I'm just reminding you that the new NICE induction guidelines consultation closes, I think, on the 6th of July. So don't forget to put your 10 penneth or 2 penneth in there if you want to comment on anything. It's quite easy to do, and you don't have to write reams, you don't have to be highly technical, but it's important your voice is heard with these sort of things. I want to say a big happy birthday to Mummy Star. Now, this is a charity that's now 8 years old, and this is a charity who supports women and families experiencing cancer during pregnancy and childbirth. And you can donate at the Mummy Star. Yeah, but the most important thing is knowing about it, to refer women who have cancer, so they have that support at a very difficult time. And there's also, what was really nice, they have a little gift list you can donate to, and those are giving little things to women who are going through that. So that seems a really nice personal thing to be able to do. Okay, other things, there's the new Global Midwives Hub. Now, I've put a lot of these things with the help of Teresa and Abby are on the resources list. So there's this list for the Global Midwives Hub. So do check it out, because it's full of really useful things. And likewise, now, yesterday was Windrush Day, and we do need to say a big celebration for the contribution of all those who came to the UK and stayed, thank goodness, who came via the Windrush, for their contribution, commitment to especially the NHS, but a lot of other parts of our country. So, you know, a very important part of us. And today is I have to read this out carefully, United Nations Public Service Day, and that's celebrating all of those who work in public service, which of course is the midwives and the nurses and the student midwives. So thank you, everyone. Also in the news, and I think this is going to go an ongoing story, really, and something we're going to carry on addressing within the Maternity and Midwifery Hour and the festivals, is the issue about mental health toll on nursing and midwifery professionals from COVID, which is, as many of you will be aware, is ongoing, and we need to kind of address that. And also, very fittingly, it's National Incontinence Week this week. So this is very, very perfect. So this evening, we're looking at pelvic health, and we're looking at pelvic floors particularly, we've all got them, and how we should look after them, and changes that are underway and coming up within the NHS to improve care for women, especially with issues such as incontinence. We want to prevent incontinence, but manage it when it happens. And I know I've got 2 very strong and very informed women who have joined us here. So we've got we'll start with Abby Holmes, who I'm delighted to introduce. She's been a midwife since 2001. She's now a consultant midwife at Cardiff and Vale University Health Board, and she's engaged, as consultant midwives often are, in clinical leadership and in research. She's passionate about care of women during pregnancy, childbirth and postnatal period, and in particular in their pelvic floor health. And she's also a personal trainer. She's also an expert witness and an author in the upcoming May's Midwifery. So welcome, Abby. Thank you very much for coming to be with us. And the screen is now yours.
Thank you very much for that introduction. I shall share my screen. I think you should be able to see my presentation now. I hope you can. Yeah, great. So as Sue has just said, I'm Abby Holmes and I'm one of the consultant midwives that works at Cardiff and Vale University Health Boards. And I have an absolute passion for pelvic floor health and pelvic health. And I usually give presentations like this, which some of you might have seen, of me bouncing around on a stage and getting you all to participate in pelvic floor exercises. So I am going to do my best to recreate that for you here and now virtually. So there are some videos to entertain you whilst we do this. So a little bit of background about myself. First of all, I'm a mother. I'm a mum of two beautiful girls who you can see on my screen there. I'm a consultant midwife, and midwifery has been my passion for such a long time now, coming to just gone by my 20-year anniversary. Sadly, COVID prevented my reunion, but hopefully that will happen soon. And then, as you can see in these bottom images, I spend some of my time with pregnant ladies, encouraging them to be healthy and active during their pregnancies, and guiding them through safe activities in pregnancy. And the way I've kind of built up my catalogue of knowledge is by working with the Royal College of Midwives. We've got the Royal College of Obstetrics and Gynecology, who publish our guidance on how women should be exercising in pregnancy and in the postpartum period. We've also got the ACOG, which is the American Society, which was slightly more advanced, or ahead of the British Royal College. And then I also have some connections with the Maysick charity. And I don't know if any of you watching have even heard of one of their ladies that accesses their charity tell you their story. Well, that is one of the things that got me hooked onto caring for ladies that have these pelvic floor traumas, because they are life-changing disorders that seem to have become almost mainstream and accepted. So which isn't acceptable, and I will be talking a little bit more about that. Oh, sorry, there's some children just arrived home. I do apologise. That will stop in a second. So if we think about the anatomy of the pelvic floor, as you can see from the image that's on your screen, it is a very complex organ. It is a not talked about organ, and when we exercise, it's probably the last thing that's on our mind. But 1 in 10 women will experience some form of pelvic floor dysfunction. This trauma can be to the fascia, to the ligaments, to the pelvic floor muscles, the nerves that are supporting the neck of the bladder, which is our urethras, and also the muscles around our back passages. The good news is the majority of ladies will recover. So that's great. And it's not non-permanent, short-lasting trauma that's happened. The area becomes bruised and then it recovers. However, evidence does show that this is much more prevalent in our older ladies, and also our ladies that have an increased body mass index at the onset of their pregnancy. So this is a really important group. We are seeing the older ladies becoming pregnant, which is absolutely fine. We can care for them, but it's just really important that really before they even think about a pregnancy, they really understand what their pelvic floor is and how they can best care for it. Quite shockingly, the CMO report in 2014, I appreciate, sorry, that's a little bit old, reported that 33% of women were still experiencing urinary incontinence 6 weeks postpartum, and 10% of women were experiencing some form of fecal incontinence. And 10 years later, 20% of women were still reporting incontinence issues. That is 20% of all women living in silence with urinary dysfunction or anal dysfunction. This is morbidity, it's not mortality, but the numbers of women that this is affecting is enormous, and you can never underestimate the physical impact this has on women and the impact on their mental health as well. When their life is changed and they can no longer partake in the activities that they loved before they were pregnant or before they reached the menopausal stages of their lives, you can imagine what an impact that can have. The Birth Trauma Association also has a lot of work around this area and shows that many women report to them bladder and bowel problems. This obviously has an effect on their personal relationships, sexual relationships with a partner in a marriage. It produces very negative body images and produces very low self-esteem for this group of women. And as you can imagine, their mental health then deteriorates. So how common is the prolonged injury? Well, up to 10% of women that have had a spontaneous vaginal birth will suffer from some form of long-term damage. That then increases, as you probably would expect, when those ladies are having an instrumental birth. And I think for a lot of people, the forceps rate is very unexpectedly high. But if you think what's going on, you've got a metal instrument going in and disrupting the muscles and the nerves and causing some significant traumas, which are either prolapses or long-term nerve damage. And the reality is that this is actually something very common. And I would expect that many of you listening are sitting here thinking, oh, that's me. So if you've seen this, you'll understand why I like to throw things at the screen for this. I hope it plays for you, but if it doesn't, we'll skip past it. I do hope you can see this. I just need to make sure the next video doesn't play. So to the next slide. Okay, so as you can see, that lady called that her pee pad, and I appreciate she's just an actress, but that type of advert completely normalizes that if a woman goes to the gym and exercises using any form of weight or even body weight exercises, it is perfectly not normal that she might wet herself. But it is okay because she's got a pad on, so that's fine, you can wet yourself. But what message does this really send to the vast majority of women that would access these type of things? It's not normal for your bladder to leak, but TENA have produced scented pads to at least cover the smell, which again is not acceptable. So when we're thinking about pelvic floor, what should we be thinking about? The pelvic floor doesn't often just empty itself when you're standing, the bladder, sorry, doesn't just empty itself when you're stood still. It's often on movement that your pelvic floor will fail you. And often, so that makes sense that we learn to train our pelvic floors while we're exercising, but it's really important that you learn to breathe, because without learning how to breathe, which I know sounds crazy because we all breathe every day, but breathing correctly, otherwise we're putting excessive pressure onto our pelvic floors. So it's really important to educate ladies. We need to empower them so they understand why I am teaching what I teach. And so they get a good understanding of it and then have a commitment to it. It's a lifelong thing, training your pelvic floor. What is your pelvic floor? And I think a lot of people will believe that it is a set of muscles that are sitting in the pelvis, and that is absolutely right. But if you can see from my diagram on your screen, it is about the connection between all of these areas. There are 4 key areas to having a good pelvic floor and a good core. So your diaphragm, that's our breathing muscles, our abdominal muscles, our tummy muscles, and the pelvic floor, and then the upper and lower back muscles. And to improve or repair your pelvic floor, you must use all 4 of these. You can't take one of them as a dysfunction in itself, in isolation. They are all connected. The diaphragm is connected to your pelvic floor, and the pelvic floor is connected to your abdominal muscles. having a baby is an absolute life-changing event and absolutely will affect the functions of these areas. A baby sometimes is cut through the abdomen, delivered through the abdominal wall in a cesarean section, is birthed through the pelvic floor. And so, as you can see, there is interruption to all of these things. But what is important to learn is they have to talk to each other. If your breathing's off, your diaphragm's a bit sticky, your pelvic floor isn't going to be controlled. One of the things that we've got available to us is something called the Squeezy app, which I'm sure many people have heard, and it's endorsed by the NHS, and it's an absolute great starting point. But it only teaches you static pelvic floor exercises. It teaches you how to locate your pelvic floor, and it teaches you how to do them. It suggests you do them 3 times a day for a prolonged period of time. Absolutely brilliant. I'm not knocking the Squeezy app at all. However, it teaches stood still in the kitchen, sat in your car, which is great. But actually then when you jump out of your car or you sneeze, that's when your pelvic floor is going to fail you. So those sudden onsets of pressure, intra-abdominal pressure, which is sneezing, coughing and laughing. So I wanted more. I just knew that this wasn't enough for women. So they were still reporting doing all their pelvic floor exercises, but still having these problems. And that's when I came across something called the Burrell Education. And they offer this holistic core restore, which looks at the woman as an entirety. It looks at her whole body to understand what systems aren't working to enable that pelvic floor to become reactive. So that's the conscious movement of your pelvic floor where you actually clench, and then the unconscious where your body predicts something's going to happen, like you're going to sneeze or you're going to laugh. So your pelvic floor, without you having to control it, activates for you, which as a younger girl, it will do that for you, but then we have to retrain it how to do that later on in life. I can't credit them enough. They're absolutely what's kind of led me into where I've ended up. So how do I teach? As you can see, there's a lovely pelvis with some pelvic floor muscles on your screen there. It's visual. I have to teach the women what's going on in their pelvises. They have to learn to Kegel and Kegel well, to understand what the pelvic floor is doing and understand the pelvis. They have to think, what's my coccyx? What's my symphysis pubis? How are the bones in my pelvis going to be connected? How am I breathing? And then you start to introduce tension. So they use other slow movements, using resistance bands and hand movements to kind of create that tension, to increase that pressure and encourage the pelvic floor to continue its control whilst that pressure is happening. Feel the connection in the female body, see them happening, and then just start to add steps on and build up from simple exercises. Now, as I told you right at the beginning, I'm a mother of 2, and one of them you're going to see in a second in the video. And I have a long time ago fallen in love with my 7-year postnatal body. So you are going to see me on screen now to demonstrate how you use basic exercise to train the core. There's my little girl in the background there. And as you can see, she's squatting with me. Watch my abdomen, relaxed. I tense it. There come out my abdominal muscles. I'm drawing my pelvic up and I'm controlling my pelvic floor for the whole way through. You can see the concentration on my face. My eyes are closed and I'm concentrating on what I'm doing. Try not to be distracted by the little one copying me next to me. And this is how I teach my ladies. It's not a piece of paper you can read. They learn through watching what you're doing. So the abdomen is relaxed. Then as you take control of everything, you see the abdominal muscles flatten. You can't see, the pelvic floor is rising up and I'm breathing. You can see the way my breath is blowing out. And this is one of the things that I teach within the classes that I offer. I offer this antenatally and postnatally, and for any ladies really, because we know that the ladies that are accessing gynecological services in the menopausal stages of their life that are having long-term continence issues from simple exercises like this can reduce the impact of a prolapse and certainly gain control of their pelvic floors. So is specialist training really needed? Do you really need to be a women's health therapist, a physiotherapist, a personal trainer that's got those additional qualifications? Well, absolutely. My answer to that is yes. And I would love it to be a format of something that comes within the NHS, that you sign up, you become pregnant or you come for your preconceptional care, and rolled out with that is your physical activity, preconceptionally, antenatally, and then postpartum. And there are other countries that already do this, particularly France. You get a 6 weeks physical activity course after your baby's born to help with your pelvic floor control, which is absolutely amazing. And I hope that we would one day look to mirror that. Why do I think specialist training? So you're going to see me in the gym, and then next you're going to see someone acting with a normal activity, someone that's going into, I'm waffling on here. I am guilty of this. After I had my first baby, I raced back to the gym. I went to an abs blast class, and I think I left crying because I couldn't do anything. I had pain, and I thought, what is going on with my body? And we all love Joe Wicks. We've all probably stood in our front rooms doing the Joe Wicks, particularly during the COVID, and thought, brilliant, what a great way to get my shape back after I've had my baby. But actually, you can be doing a lot more harm than good. So you'll see in the top, the video that's about to play, normal box jump. If you've ever go to the gym, that's what you can see. Can you imagine the pressure that that is putting on your abdomen and your pelvic floor? And then you can see my alternative, which I would teach someone that's coming into the gym after they've had their baby. Our next one, again, is, I think Gareth is going to burst into life and do some burpees. Again, that jumping, the 2 feet hitting the floor, the abdominal pressure, most women would have had leakage at this point. And if you can see, I'm not putting the pressure out onto my abdomen quite so much with that one. Again, planks. Women love, well, lots of people love the plank. It's a love or hate sort of maneuver. But if you can see the tension in his abdomen, now I know he's got a t-shirt on, but my movements are what would be encouraging pregnant or postnatal women to do. And then the final one, again, burst of energy. You see a jump squat, and then you see me with a weight, just controlling my pelvic floor through the whole way, getting exactly the same workout, but absolutely targeting those areas that I've actually feeling that I've got a weakness. And if you see the 4 exercises that were done by the male in the video, they are what will be in a usual gym class. And most women will just put up with it and go home with a soaking leggings or a never return, or hopefully acts as a specialist trainer. So yes, that's why it's so important. Just want to get out of the videos. Bear with me while I get onto the next slide. Okay, so hopefully some of you have seen this amazing announcement from NHS England. Hopefully we'll make it to Wales as well. They are going to pilot 14 pelvic health clinics, a one-stop shop for women that will have midwives, women health specialists, physiotherapists, obstetrics and gynecology will be involved, and there'll be that referral on, because there will be some ladies, however hard we work with them on a physical basis, they will need the support of a colorectal surgeons. Hopefully by services like this, referrals to those type of services will be massively reduced. But really excited announcement. I kind of gave an air high five when I read that one on the news, and I do hope that the 14 become hundreds of clinics that all women of all ages can access. And then my final point is just this. We all come in different shapes and sizes, but it's not normal for us to have urinary and anal incontinence after we have our children or later on in life. I think also we think if you never gave birth to a baby, it's not something that's going to affect you. The hormonal changes that happen when you go to your menopausal stage of life absolutely can lead to weaknesses in these areas. It is something we should be educating our young girls in school. Physical education for girls should incorporate knowing what their pelvic floor is to give them a healthy, happy life, that we no longer hear women saying, after I've had my baby, I don't go on a trampoline anymore because I don't have a baby. I've stopped running. I've stopped weightlifting because my bladder just can't cope with it. And the more we normalize things like that, the more isolated women that are suffering in silence with these conditions. So I have rattled through a presentation. I hope at some point you've all thought, ooh, where's my pelvic floor? And at least given it a bit of a squeeze. And even the men that are watching, I think we think it's a female disorder. Men have pelvic floors and it can lead to incontinence for them, sexual dysfunction, and poor abdominal muscles, which is when you get that very distinct bowed abdomen where the abdominal muscles are separating. it's again, that's thought to be normal as a male goes into adult life, older life, sorry, but it's not. And so by doing specialist training, it doesn't have to be in the gym, in your home, husband and wife, partners, anyone that wants to do it, you can do it together. So that is, in a nutshell, everything that I am. Thank you very much.
Fabulous, Abby. That's fantastic. I think that's given us lots to think about on that. And I suspect there'll be some questions. So audience, if you want to have some questions for Abby, you'll need to start putting them through now. The reason I'm going to the side is because the questions come through on another screen. So we have some questions at the time at the end for questions. So thank you very much for that, starting us off, Abby. Okay, we're going to move on now to Teresa. And Teresa's got a background in medical recruitment. She studied midwifery and she was a fitness instructor. I'm surrounded by fitness. It's wonderful. It might be catching. Fantastic. And she first came across the EpiNo product in 2004 at the Royal College of Midwives annual conference. And having had 3 children, an episiotomy and reconstructive surgery, she looked at the little blue balloon, which you will see in a minute, in front of her and thought, if only this had been around in 1987. So she's worked with EpiNo and is going to share something about it, quite a bit about it, I suspect. She's works within the customer services as well, coaching and advising women who are unsure about the product. And she continues to be an advocate for women's health and making women's births experiences as safe and trauma-free as possible. Now, Teresa is going to be talking about this thing called EpiNo, which some of you will have heard of. You might have even used it, and some of your women might have used it. And I'm really glad. I was going to say to Teresa, can you show us this item and then explain a bit about how women can use it?
Okay, so the EpiNo product is a German invention. It was invented at the end of the 1990s by a Dr. Wilhelm Horkel in Germany, who's a gynecologist. And the product is actually designed more regarding prevention as opposed to working on trauma afterwards. So the EpiNo is designed, it's a 3-stage exercise program using the EpiNo as a tool. The first 2 stages are done antenatally, and then the 3rd stage is done after you've had the baby to help try and regenerate the pelvic floor muscles. But the crucial part of it is really to work on the perineum, to stretch the perineum. So initially, what you do is the product's designed to be used during pregnancy, so it can be used at any point. But in the UK, we suggest that women wait until they're around about 32 weeks pregnant, their pregnancy is going perfectly normally, and then it would be suitable for them to start using this. And we like them to start using it as a pelvic floor exerciser, not to actually build strength and tone in the muscles, because obviously at that point in the pregnancy, that's not going to happen. It's actually to teach women how to raise their pelvic floors and then actually relax the pelvic floor muscles. So they will insert the balloon into the vagina. And as they have it in the vagina and they squeeze against, I'm not sure if you can see that very well. Can you see the dial?
Can see the dial.
So as they squeeze the pelvic floors, the arrow will move up. Okay. But what we're really looking at here is them to relax their pelvic floor muscles. A lot of women have quite tight pelvic floor muscles, actually. And so teaching a woman to down train or relax her pelvic floor muscles towards the end of the pregnancy can be really beneficial when they actually go into labor, because relaxation of the pelvic floors, if a baby meets tight muscle, it's more difficult to get through. So relaxing the pelvic floor muscles at will is really helpful. So they will practice squeezing and then relaxing. So come the day, they will have learned how to actually proactively relax their pelvic floor muscles, which will be really helpful. So then once they get to 37 weeks pregnant, they can start using this as a tool to prepare their perineum. Now, I know in the midwifery profession, they discuss perineal massage, and a lot of midwives think it's very beneficial, but it's actually quite difficult to do manual perineal massage, particularly, you know, you're 36, 37 weeks pregnant, you have a bump, you've got to try and reach, you've actually got to exert pressure and at the same time try and relax. So this is a tool that actually helps you to do that with yourself being able to relax at the same time. So the balloon, as you can see, it's the shape of a figure of 8. So you insert the balloon halfway. So if you can see that, it's half in and half out. So this part will be in the vagina and this part will be outside. Now, gradually, as you put air into the balloon, it will gradually stretch your perineum. Okay, so what we're looking for women to do is to gradually, it's a marathon, not a sprint. So over the period of 3 weeks, so from 37 weeks onwards, use it every day and just take it up a little bit more. And then at the end of the 20-minute session, obviously there's more details on the website in terms of how to specifically use it. But at the end of the 20 minutes, they will then relax. They will do that relaxation exercise that they did with the up-down training, and then they can relax the balloon out. Now, the technology in this balloon is, if you noticed at the beginning, it was in the shape of a figure of 8. So the narrowest part sits on the perineum. As you inflate the balloon, the narrowest part becomes the widest part. So that is the part that is stretching the most, and that is sitting on the perineum. So we're not looking to stretch the vagina, we're literally looking to stretch the perineum. And then obviously at the end of each session, you will relax the balloon and then you can measure it. So there's a little measuring guide. I'm not sure.
Oh my word. Okay.
So each day you can see how your progress is doing. Now, the magic number is 10 centimeters because obviously that's the magic number that you can start to push when the cervix is dilated. But actually most women will probably get this up to maybe 7.5, 8, 8.5 centimeters. What we're actually looking for them to do is to gradually stretch. So every day you're gradually stretching the perineum, so you're making it more elastic, and it's that elasticity that helps prevent the tearing. So at the end of each session, obviously you measure the balloon, and when you've had the baby and you've done your 6 weeks check, you can then use this as a tool to work your pelvic floor muscles. Now, again, this isn't a magic bullet. Going to somebody like Abby, going to a specialist pelvic health physiotherapist is the best route, obviously. But this is a tool that can assist you to regenerate, start getting your pelvic floor muscles working after you've had the baby. So the crucial part for Epino really is looking at prevention. So we're looking at preventing women from having trauma and injury. So actually they don't go on to develop problems later on with incontinence, with problems with their pelvic floors. And interestingly, Abby mentioned France in her talk. So in France, the French insurance companies pay for women's epinos.
Oh,
because
okay.
actually, from a financial perspective, it will save them a lot of money because the tool has been shown that it actually does work. I mean, there have been various studies done across the world that show the reduction in tearing, particularly third and fourth, but also first and second degree tears, which is why obviously the French insurance companies feel it's a brilliant tool for them to use because, you know, at the end of the day, they are there to provide a service, but they're also there to make money. So,
or save money.
exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the Epino. I've been selling. I brought the Epino to the UK. I started selling it in 2005 after I found it. I'm extremely passionate about it. I know it works. Obviously, anything to do with birth is unpredictable, and you know, one woman can use it 3 times and have 3 different experiences with it. We know this, and that's why it's been very difficult to try and provide, you know, a randomized controlled study. I know that the midwifery profession would love that in order to be able to recommend it or talk about it, but it's almost an impossibility. We have had 2 or 3 hospitals that have wanted to run a study, but it would require them basically managing every single woman within the group who's using Epino to make sure they're using it in exactly the same way, which has been quite difficult. And also in Australia, they tried to run a randomized controlled study, but the control group who didn't get the Epinos then went and bought an Epino in their local camp. So, and you may see that study is floating around all over the place, but unfortunately, that's what happened with that study. So we've almost got to the point in the UK, we've carried out our own customer survey. It's not a study, it is a customer questionnaire.
Is that this one?
So yeah, so the statistics, you know, they're not going to stand up in a journal because it is a customer survey. I mean, I would love it if a midwife would get involved with me to maybe Abby would be interested to try and customize the way we ask the questions to actually get more out of the women. We have over 1,000 women who have responded to our survey now, which is a huge cohort of women. And, you know, obviously they were proactively using the Epino. So obviously it's not a study, but nevertheless, it shows a 42% risk reduction in tearing of these women. So it's my love, it's my passion. I know it makes a difference, and I'm just grateful that you've asked me on here today to talk about it. I'm not a salesperson. I'm just someone who's passionate about trying to help women. You know, similarly to Abby, it's not acceptable that Tenor Lady sells pads and normalizes incontinence. Not acceptable.
I have to say, other pads are available.
Of
course.
Because
I think that's a good point, actually, Teresa, because and Abby, because it's quite a big market, and I'm always, and when you're showing the statistics that Abby showed and we're talking about, you realize what a good market it is, and you know, it becomes quite sales led in that way. I mean, I think if I can say to the audience, if you're interested in the Epino, have a look at the website. That's on the resources sheet. And there is a whole lot of information from women who've tried out the Epino, and some of whom loved it. A couple said it was really difficult because you got a bump to get round. And I suppose one of the things you were talking about, it, you know, getting used to using the pelvic floor. And I was thinking one of the things, it's like massaging perineums. It gets someone used to being quite open about trying these things and getting to know their body better and what works. So all of these things will help.
No, not everybody will want to do perineal massage. Not everybody will want to use an Epino. Some women don't even, they don't want to prepare in that way. And that's absolutely fine. But for the women who decide, actually, I'd like to try and do something to prevent tearing. I don't want to tear when I give birth. You know, it is there and it is available. And, you know, if there are midwives out there watching who would be interested in me coming, I mean, that was part of my job before COVID hit. I used to go to hospitals and give training sessions on the product and more information. So, you know, it's I'm available anytime, any hospital, anywhere.
Fabulous. That's all on the resources sheet as well. And that's really helpful, Teresa. I mean, I think I found looking through the webpage very interesting, because I'd heard about this some time ago, actually, from someone who's looking at it with a research head. And it's quite true that we like, well, I think midwives are in a bit of a conflict, because I think we like RCTs, randomized controlled trials, because they're quite clear generally that it either proves or doesn't prove. But on the other hand, we like qualitative stuff that tells us what works for women and what women like and what midwives can work with. So we're a bit conflicted about that. But thank you so much to Teresa and to Abby for getting us on this little route. It's a huge subject, so we're only sort of scratching the surface, but we've already had a couple of questions through, which is lovely coming through. So thank you to those of you who've asked questions. And the first question is from Jo D'Augustin. Hi, Jo. She's there every Wednesday, so it's lovely to see you there. Abby, this is to you. Your passion and knowledge is wonderful to see. Thank you for working on this important issue. Question: what is it about our physiology that means we need to attend to our pelvic floor in this way to avoid dysfunction? That's a good one.
That is a good question, actually, and I'll try to sort of answer that succinctly. I think it's because it's a muscle. A basic answer to that is it's a muscle. If you think about a bicep, to increase the size of our bicep, we lengthen it and shorten it, and our biceps then become stronger. And our pelvic floor is exactly the same. So if you squat and the pelvic floor is stretched, then you're strengthening those muscles. The same with the lunge or any of those type of things. I think because we don't think about it because it's internal, but it is. If you didn't exercise, if you were unable to walk, then you would have muscle wastage in your legs. If you were unable to move your arm, you would see muscle wastage. And if you have been an avid gym goer and you stop, your muscle goes, and the pelvic floor is no different. So it's not really about a difference in makeup of physiology. It's just a hidden muscle that needs exercising, and it's so big. It's an absolute hammock that is holding everything inside and has an enormous amount of pressure applied to it on a daily basis. Even rolling over in your sleep, your pelvic floor needs to activate to enable you to do that. So I hope that answers that question for you.
I think that's brilliant. You just made me, when you said the hammock of the pelvic floor, I thought about a teacher once was teaching me and called it the haddock. Just to lighten it a little. Okay, Abby, Jane wants to know, Abby, what course in pelvic health are you going to do?
Okay, I'm going to do a staged approach to a master's in pelvic health. So it will enable me to perform abdominal, vaginal and rectal examinations, insert pessary rings, do colorectal scanning to look at women that have suffered, unfortunately, 3rd and 4th degree tears, to guide them through for their next pregnancies, and to support women that have got vaginal and prolapses. So I will then hopefully then incorporate that into the service that we do have a women's health, a perineal service in Cardiff, but it is run by a lone obstetrician who is great, but one person can't do it all. So we'd like to move it out of the hospital setting and be able to offer a community for all across all ages. Because the pessaries, for instance, are for the older ladies, but for a lady that has suffered significant perineal damage during her pregnancy, knowing then how to help that repair in its best possible way, reduce the amount of scar tissue that builds up, and then think about how she's going to birth any subsequent babies she may choose to have, whether that's vaginally or via cesarean section. It's to give them that whole service that offers that holistic approach to women's health.
That's grand. Okay. I mean, I was just wondering if you, I don't know, if there was one thing, I'll ask Teresa this, if there was one thing you could do to improve pelvic floor health, what would you advise?
Well, to be honest, I would start educating girls in primary school. I mean, my daughter...
Primary school, wow.
100%. My daughter is 22 now. Obviously, she all my children have lived with Epino. They know but so my daughter, I've been talking to my daughter about her pelvic floor and exercising her pelvic floor, her posture, and how important the pelvic floor is in primary school. Absolutely. You know, it's a group of muscles that actually needs exercising on a regular basis. And for women particularly, I know obviously men as well, but you know, the hormonal changes that happen to women all the way through their lives, obviously not, you know, pregnancy obviously, but also, I mean, I'm menopausal age now, and you know, the muscle atrophy that comes, you know, with the reduction of estrogen, you know, it's all through our lives, and it is so important that you actually engage your pelvic floor muscles on a regular basis.
I would add to that as well. Is one of the things that you hear people say is that people that maybe their child has a weak bladder, haven't got a weak bladder. It's the pelvic floor muscles, and the same as Teresa. I don't have Epino laying around my house, but I have pelvises that come apart. So the kids will often use them as kind of a jigsaw to put them back together, so they can't avoid knowing what their pelvic floor does. But it does. It's not as common in young girls, but it does happen. And you can have very young youngsters going through all sorts of investigation through urology and everything, and it is the pelvic floor. And some of the children that have maybe got, and more in COVID, with anxiety related issues, if they then are having some incontinence or bedwetting later on, it can stem from the pelvic floor muscles.
Wow. I mean, that's a really useful thing for people to know, actually. Thank you for that, both of you. That's fantastic. Okay, I've got another question from Lucy McNamara, who says, where do you do your training to teach pelvic floor exercises, postnatal exercise, Abigail? And where can we as professionals signpost women to good pelvic floor exercise in the postnatal period?
There's lots of providers, like we said with Tenor, there are lots of providers, but I will tell you what my experience is. Go onto the Borough Education and type find a coach, and they'll put the detail. You'll see my face pop up on the website. We have to be licensed, so they're licensed practitioners. Some of them will be physios, some of them will be midwives, some of them will be personal trainers, but I do my training in the middle of the gym, and I get funny looks and people go, what's she doing? And they don't probably look like they're doing the most intensive exercise, but to have women then contact me saying, I've never ate as much as when I do your classes, or the best compliment is, I sneezed and my bladder did its job, my pelvic floor did its job. And you know, as midwives, we like compliments like that anyway about those kind of things. But yes, in the middle of the gym, I don't hide the ladies away. I don't think we should. And it's and to get more people involved, like when the antenatal classes are going, unfortunately with the gyms the way they are at the moment, I don't have many antenatal women in the gym, but we have fun, and that's one of the best ways of getting other people involved. There's always going to be someone in the gym that's looking on thinking, I think I need that, or I'm thinking of having a baby, and there'll always be someone when I'm packing all the equipment away that'll come and chat to me. So yeah, so in the middle of the gym, I take over the gym floor.
Yeah, and it sounds
Can I just add something in there?
Yes, of course.
So recently, in the last sort of 18 months to 2 years, I've had a lot of interest from the pelvic obstetric and gynecological physiotherapists. So they have actually, it seems they are doing a lot more in terms of antenatal classes. Now, whether they're doing it, they're not doing it on the NHS, they're obviously doing it privately. But these POGPs are amazing, amazing women. And so if somebody is looking, you know, if they've just got, you know, they just want to do exercise, great to get a personal trainer. But these if they've got any problems or issues with incontinence and they can't get the help that they're looking for, say from their GP, you know, because most GPs will go, oh, do your pelvic floors. Well, that's great. But if they don't know how to do their pelvic floors, it's not very helpful, and they don't go back. But the POGPs really, I think, are starting to work as well more with their midwifery departments, because it's a joined up thing. You know, it's not it's not just for midwives to have the responsibility of this. I don't think, you know, it's definitely you know, reaching out to other services and the POGPs, and you can find them. You can go POGP into Google, and then you'll get a list of all the POGPs in your area. You know, put your postcode in, and there's a directory there, and you'll find them. But these people are really in tune with women who are having problems, basically, even minor problems. Most women, nobody wants to actually even have a dribble, let alone the other issues. So, and that dribble can then lead to bigger things if it's not addressed. And so the POGPs are an area where I think midwives could definitely maybe steer ladies to who are having difficulties. Yeah.
I mean, I think it makes me feel, because I remember as a student midwife and as a junior midwife, we used to do this with women, in that we used to teach pelvic floor exercise in antenatal classes. And then, I mean, it wasn't as tuned as going to a gym, but there's no reason why midwives can't help women, because you might have a specialist midwife in your midst, but you may not, and you need to kind of maybe get someone who's interested. I mean, if you have someone like Abby in your locality,
I think
you can
stretch, though, aren't they? And they're covering so much that it's very difficult.
And it is an expectation that we talk about it to ladies in pregnancy, but probably if you did a poll amongst midwives, and this isn't a criticism, they would say, are you doing your pelvic floor exercises? But if a lady said no, how do I do it? The descriptions that are given would be probably far ranging, but that's because it's maybe not covered, and there's much more educational needs. I remember going to listen to some dissertation presentations with the University of Cardiff, and one of the students, which at the time I thought this is very strange, she gave us those big knickers, the incontinence knickers, and we had to sit in them, and I was very uncomfortable by the end of it. But her presentation was all about pelvic floor dysfunction, and I realized by the end of it, this is why she's made me sit in this, because I hadn't really given it much thought. And I'm talking like 10-15 years ago now, but yeah, it was a very novel way to do a dissertation presentation.
Yeah, very good. I mean, well, those of you out there who are teachers and students, take this on board, because actually, if we all have to be fitter and use exercise to get our core stability right and get all our exercises going and all our pelvic floors, then it'll be easier to teach our women and our kids as well. So, I mean, that's a good thing to be pulling out. Thank you for that. I've got Jenny. Hi, Jenny. Jenny Hall says, is there any evidence of the impact of the use of the product on postnatal pelvic floor? I think that must mean the Epinode. Thank you, Jenny. Good question.
Well, the impact is that if there's a reduction in injury, then obviously there's going to be less problems postpartum. So, you know, yes, there is. And if you'd like to have a look at the clinical studies, it will give you the information. But yes, certainly, if a woman has no trauma, she's going to recover more quickly than, you know, somebody, even if you've got well, I say even, no tear is comfortable, let's be honest, even a first degree. So it's it's kind of a knock-on effect, you know, as I say, as I said in the beginning, prevention better than cure. So yes, it does show that.
Actually, on that issue, I went, when I was on the website, do you have the kind of the studies? I couldn't see them, but it might be because I was looking in the wrong place.
So they're all, so if you go onto the website and go onto clinical trials, then if you carry on going down, there are links to all the trials done by the company in Germany. So yeah, everything's there for you to
I'll jot that down. Okay, well, that's our homework to get on with that one. Now I thought
you were going to say pelvic floor exercise.
No, the pelvic floor. That goes without saying. I'm busy doing my pelvic floors, purely my pelvic floors, not my Pilates, to get all the other bits going. But I take it on board. I'm listening, Abby. I am listening. And Sarah Spencer says, question for Teresa: what proportion of pregnant women get introduced to Epinode and other therapies. Are there any management objections to be overcome to showing a product?
Well, I think this is the kind of whole issue in terms of the randomized controlled studies, because midwives, in terms of their code of practice, aren't allowed to recommend something. But I think we've almost got to the tipping point really now, because obviously Epino is available. It's been available in the UK for 15 years now, and more women. So interestingly, a lot of the emails I get from midwives are, oh, I've had so many women asking me about your product. I felt it was time I rang you or emailed you to get more information. So, you know, we send out samples and leaflets, and as I say, I would go and visit and have a chat about the product. So yeah, it's getting to the point. You know, I think the thing is, it's all about choice. So if a woman goes to a midwife and says, right, I'm choosing to use an Epino, will you support me? There's no problem with her doing that whatsoever. But and a lot of midwives do actually discuss Epino in their antenatal classes now, which is how it's definitely changed, particularly, I would say, in the last 5 years, and even more in the last 2 to 3 years with Instagram. You know, things can go viral in days, can't they? So it's almost at the point now where women are using it anyway. So the midwives really need to know about it, not necessarily to say, oh, everyone should use an Epino, because it's not suitable for everyone. But in terms of, if you're looking to do perineal massage and you're discussing that, it's not, you know, unthinkable for them to say, actually, there is a tool that you can use if you want to. There's the website, it's your choice. You know, it's not for the midwife to say you have to do this. It's
no.
for them to support the woman if she chooses to use one.
That's fabulous. Thank you very much. Now, we've come to the end of our time. I said to both my lovely speakers that this hour always whizzes by like that. And I want to say a big thank you to Teresa and to Abby for being so fantastic and giving us a lot of information in a very short time. And I'd like to thank the audience for fantastic questions and the kind of interaction that we've had. I hope you found it useful. I know that both Abby's available and Teresa on her website. We've got all that bits of information on the resource sheet, so do access that if you'd like to. And we'll see you next week. We've got a bit more of an interesting week next week. I'm not going to tell you the topic. You're going to find out when it comes around at some point. But in the meantime, thank you to our speakers, and thank you to you for joining us. And we'll see you next week, and take care.
One of the benefits, I think, of a platform like this is that if you are busy clinically, or if you can't watch or listen or engage real time, you can do this at other times. So that is fabulous for such a time as this. So delighted to be with you all, albeit virtually on the screen. My name is Jacqueline Dunkley-Bent. I'm the Chief Midwifery Officer for the NHS in England.
And good morning to everyone. Welcome indeed to this Scottish Midwifery Online Festival. And good morning and welcome to the Maternity and Midwifery London Online Festival.
Good morning and welcome to the second annual Maternity and Midwifery Festival.
What 2020 has shown us is that there's a real need for vigilance, that women's rights are not yet really embedded in our maternity system, and that they can be easily eroded.
My argument is that the solution is health optimization. Prevention is far better than cure.
And I think there is a real risk that services that are lost or reduced during the time of COVID are not restored.
The hard truth is there is a lot of racism there. It's not enough to be non-racist, swimming in a pool of racism. You have to be anti-racist, actively working against racism. And I say that because when we treat the least, well, everybody benefits.
And if I had a take-home message looking at my career and where I've been in my career, my take-home message would be grab it every opportunity you can. It's not a rehearsal. Know your limitations, because jam too thinly spread is tasteless. Enjoy it all and let nobody steal your sparkle.
And I hope that you can take valuable insights from today. And if you're listening tonight, or if you're listening next week or next month, take valuable insights from the speakers from today and share the word, share the positive messages with your colleagues, because in these dark times, in these challenging times, everybody needs a green shoot and a pearl of wisdom. Thank you very much. And we are in this together. We stand united together.